Well, welcome.
Sorry.
Special welcome to Brian Long. We'd like to welcome everybody out to our regular school board meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with our land acknowledgement.
We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believed that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Thank you. Will everyone please rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll have our roll call attendant, Madam Clerk.
Director Ray. Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Hi, here.
President Levesque.
Here.
Director Nat.
Here.
Student Advisor Levon.
Here.
Superintendent Sweet.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything you'd like to change, or do we have a motion to approve the agenda as proposed? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
A second.
It's a moved and seconded to approve the agenda as proposed. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to our approval of the minutes. We have regular meeting minutes from June 12th and 2 special meeting event attendance minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the June 12th meeting minutes? Make a motion to approve the June 12th regular meeting minutes.
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes from June 12th. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Next is our special meeting event attendance minutes from June 13th. That's our Weston graduation. Are there any changes, or do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the special meeting event attendance minutes from June 13th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the June 13th minutes. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Next up is our special meeting event attendance minutes from June 15th. That's the Arlington High School graduation. Do we have a motion to approve so?
I move that we approve special meeting event attendance minutes from June 15th, 2023.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the special meeting event attendance minutes from June 15th. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Next up is our public comment portion of the meeting. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Or anyone here in person that would like to speak to the board this evening? And that brings us to our consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to our new business portion of the meeting. And first up is our report of donations approved by our superintendent for June.
So in June, there were 3 donations that I approved. The first one was for $2,000 from Jan Iverson for 4th grade supplies to president of elementary 4th grade classes. The second was a donation of surplus middle school level books. They valued about $250, and that was to provide 5 or more books to every student at Coast Middle School for Passport Day. And the last one was a donation of $4,000 from the Eagle Creek PTA to purchase materials to install a sandbox on the playground and purchase a new ladder to repair the existing recess structure for one of the toys. Those are donations.
Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful.
It is.
Next up is our budget development briefing. We'd like to welcome Gina Zutenhorst, our Executive Director of Financial Services.
Hello.
Greetings.
My screen shared here. We ready to go? All right, here we go. So I'm here to share the draft of our 23-24 budget, our operating budget for next year. And we always begin when we're talking about our budget with our strategic plan goals, our primary mission of the district, and to express our vision aligned budgeting culture, in that our budget is not separate from our mission. It is not separate from our strategic plan goals, and we align with that. So I include these in the beginning of my presentation always, that we have them as a resource to refer to. And I have spoken them to you many times. Strategic plan goal 3 is the area that is over resource stewardship. And there's the specifics within that plan goal around resource stewardship and the values that guide budget decisions also. And I keep these in the presentation so that these values can be referred to at any time. We can go back to those and they can be seen as part of our presentation. So today, attached to this board plate is a very large document, over 200 pages, and it is called the F-195. And that is OSPI's defined document that all school districts have to report their budgets in. And it is extremely detailed. It is very prescriptive, and every part of it is defined for us on how we are to present and what data goes where and what each account code means. Our budget is divided into 5 different funds. The general fund is the largest fund of the district, is primary fund. It's where all the operations of the district, of the day-to-day operations happen. We have 4 other funds, and I will share out those details on those funds as well in a summary format. Quickly, what those funds are for are Associated Student Body Fund. That accounts for each elementary, middle, and high school's extracurricular activities of a cultural, athletic, recreational, or social nature. Our debt service fund is used to pay for the principal and interest on bonds that were issued to finance school construction and renovation. Capital Projects Fund is for long-term school construction and repair needs. And just to restate that any of the funds that are legally defined that must go into the Capital Projects Fund and not be used for school operations for regular day-to-day things. It has to be used for capital project type things. And then the Transportation Vehicle Fund, that as well, the resources that go into there specifically defined as such by the state and can only be used to buy school buses. So now I'm going to go ahead and dig into, I mentioned that 200-page document. This is that narrowed down in a nutshell, 1 page in a summary format for the general fund. So very high level, but this will give you a picture of what it looks like. So I've got 2 columns there, compares last year's budget, the year that we're in now, to the next year's budget, the year that we're planning for. It gives a beginning fund balance, revenues, expenditures, and our ending fund balance. The next columns on the very far right just define the difference between those 2 years in dollar amount, as well as a percentage change. What amount that makes up as a percentage of the whole, what's the percentage change there?
So as you can see, a district our size, $96.7 million in revenues. That's a 2.8 million more in revenues budgeting than last year. And expenditures of 99.3 million. And that is a decrease of 707,000 from the prior year. Certainly that envelopes cost increases. So instead of showing a cost increase because of natural increases that we would be obligated to, it does still show a decrease there. And then with an ending fund balance of 3.3 million. Now that is short of the target where we would like to be. It's close, but it is still short. I'm going to talk about our staff counts. That's part of this, what's summarized in the budget as well. The summary page shows just this breakout between the two different kinds of staff that by the state's definition that they call certificated employees, those that hold a teaching certificate, and classified employees, which is everyone else, those who do not hold a teaching certificate. And again, you can see the staff we budgeted for the year we're in now, and that we are showing a decrease in the staff that we're budgeting for next year. But we are holding a staff of 575, that's full-time equivalent. So that is a decrease from the previous year. And then we have enrollment, which is a very significant driver for everything that we're doing. And it shows you the kindergarten enrollment numbers that are estimated, projected for the year that we're in now. This is budgeted compared to next year, the one we're planning for next year. And you can see, I also included the actual column there. So I gave you the budget for the year we're in now. And what do we actually have for the year we're in now? And then what do we have projected for next year? And the projected budgeted number is what the board approved in January as our projection. And I just want to comment that we are very being wisely conservative in this, and that the decrease is largely because of kindergarten enrollments that have in the recent years trended differently than before. So next, key points. This assumes a beginning fund balance of 6.2 million. It lands at an estimated ending fund balance of 3.3. That is short of the target. We are going to be monitoring for things that can be done to continue to get towards that target. Our current year spending is going to need to remain very narrow, and our future years will need additional reductions, and it's going to be hard. But we're getting closer. And we'll be working to balance that budget and rebuild our fund balance to a higher level. What's included in the budget? Salary increases based on our collective bargaining agreements landed us at 6.7%. And those are all built into our projections for what we believe our costs are going to be next year.
And Gina, that 6.7%, that's a 3-year, if I'm correct?
So that is the third year of a 3-year agreement.
Okay, this will be
With
the
our
23-24 will be the 3rd year.
Yes,
So we'll need, and that's for certificated,
correct.
okay,
And most of the others follow that, at least in budget. That is what we have put for budgeting, and many of the have already been approved to the board as well to follow. But this is for our budgeting purposes. Yes,
so they would finish up this year with that, and then 2024, 25 would be the year to.
23, 24 would be the 6.7.
Right, but then this will be the 3rd year, and then for
Yes.
the next round of 3, that would be a negotiation next
Correct,
school year.
but it wouldn't necessarily be 3, it's whatever they agree on.
Okay, so for some term,
2, could be 3
okay,
years.
gotcha,
Yes.
okay, but we're in the 3rd year at this.
We're in the last year.
With the
negotiating
with the
ADA.
teachers union.
Yeah.
But we're currently bargaining or negotiating with PSC,
Okay,
and we
So-
also, I think AAA, which is our administrators, it's 6.7.
okay, thanks.
All right, so very important to share that our budget includes a general fund levy of 90,750,000. And a capital fund levy of 6,600,000 some thousand. And I draw that out specifically because our budget is part of the authority that we show when we go to tell the county treasurer exactly how much to put on the tax rolls for 2024. And that levy will then be expiring at the end of 2024 and would be up for replacement in February 2024's vote, or depending on how the board moves. And that would be, and in time to put that before the voters for replacement for the following years. I didn't say that very well, but here is a breakout of our general fund revenues. So the main thing to see from this is the very primary sources of our funding: the state, local taxes, federal dollars, and then a little bit of miscellaneous other. The state by far makes up the very most, the green piece and the orange larger pieces, for a total of 81,000 or 81%. And local taxes make up 11% of our revenues, federal dollars 4%. In ESSER funding or COVID year relief, that percentage was higher as a percentage comparing to the other parts. And that is back down to what it has been in probably closer to in the past. So that's our revenues. And then here is that in dollar amounts. So those same categories, but in dollar amounts. And so a district our size, it's $96.7 million budget. I want to clarify something for you here, that again, we have GASB generally, or Governmental Accounting Standard Board, that requires us to do this special accounting for leases. And another new one is, let's see if I can say this right, subscription-based information technology agreement, so SPITA. Where's that? So we are including the values there so that we can make the appropriate bookings on that. And we don't know exactly how much that's going to be yet, but we will have to book those for the year that we're in now and for next year as well. So last year we did this as well, and you can see that it is down there in the other revenues category. 5 million of that figure is book entries only. It's not actual revenues. We have that same thing on the expenditure side. They are not actual expenditures. They offset. So if you're looking at that, it will appear to be skewed that we've got 6.7 million in other revenues, but the actual dollars would be that we're budgeting is 1.7. Is that making sense? Okay.
And Gina, what is covered under like a state special purpose and federal special purpose?
The state special purpose is the funds from state for special education.
Special ed, okay.
Yeah, and transportation as well. Those kinds of where they're this stream from the state, but it's only for special education. This stream from the state, but it's only for transportation.
Why do they break that out? Why do they break out special ed from general ed?
I think it has to do with how they're allocating the funds.
Okay.
Those are examples. And then federal special purpose is most of the money. It's very rare that we ever get any federal general purpose money.
Mhm.
It's only $14,000 there. That basically means it's from the federal government, $14,000. It's federal forests money. And it is to be utilized for anything. There's no restriction on how or it must be utilized
Okay.
or spent.
Some flexibility.
So we do break it out. Everything else that we get from the federal government is special purpose, specifically defined. Okay. And then, so now moving on to expenditures, here's a pie chart. This is how the funds are spent by program. And again, this is state defined categories. And it'll show that 55% of our funds expenditures are for regular instruction. The next largest area is support services, 18%. And then 16% is special education. And then a lot of those other little slivers are the other kinds of things that we're providing it that are specifically defined and in their own unique way. For example, career and technical education. And you'll hear a little bit from our director of that program and a little later from somebody else. We'll get, but anyway, so those are the other kinds of programs that are smaller in nature. Here's that in dollar amounts again. So you can see how that's broken out in dollars and increases, decreases from previous year's budget. Or the year that we're in now to this year. And also, I want to point out again that the $5 million that I was speaking of, that was for GASB, lease and SPITA accounting, book entries only, not actual expenditures, is in the community, other instructional programs category. So that area is not actually going to be $6.5 million of budgeted costs that are going to go through there. It would more truly be a budget of 1.5. Okay, are we following on our numbers? Here's the expenditures by activity. This is another way, it's the same numbers, 99 million at the bottom, the green line on the bottom. Same expenditures, just defined and categorized a little differently. And this is another state-defined way that they have us code everything. So you have teaching and support as the top dollar. School administration is 6.5. Central admin, 6.7, support service, other support activities, 13. And just stressing that this is sometimes a hard way to look at it. It does not tell you the whole picture. And it leads one to assumptions because it's easy to assume that school administration means principals. But that is not the only cost that's in there. All of the whole entire just building office, building front office, so for a school building is what is the school administration. The copiers, the paper, the chairs, the desks, everything that is part of the principal's office is included there. Registrars, secretaries, just to give you that sense. And same in the central administration, you might assume that that's just directors, but that is everything more than that. And then other support activities. There's support maintenance and transportation and food services and all of those like programs that support all schools across the whole district that are put in there. And then one last look at expenditures, another way that the state defines us to represent the costs are in these categories. So we have certificated salaries, and I mentioned that is for staff who hold a teaching certificate, and classified salaries, everyone else who does not hold a teaching certificate. Employee benefits, so Social Security, Medicare, retirement, labor and industries taxes, anything of that nature is in the health benefits, is all in employee benefits. And we have supplies and materials. Purchase services is just contractual services, so it's intangible, licenses, subscriptions, insurance. Then we have travel, which as you can see is a very small component, but is not completely eliminated. We do have mileage reimbursements that happen across the district that we would be obligated for no matter. And also travel that happens with teacher professional development that is part of their allocation that they're entitled to by collective bargaining agreements. So we do still have costs that show up in that area. This, the travel component, not all of their PD involves travel, but the travel component. And then capital outlay, again, that's where there's only actually 24,000 budgeted in that area. And 5 million, again, that's where the GASB accounting entries are located. This is a required disclosure by law. Years ago, the legislature put something special that said that you have to include this as part of your budget presentation. So we put it in every year. And it is again, something very prescriptive, just the material supplies and other costs as allocated by the state compared to what we're budgeting in material supplies and other costs. And only for certain programs, not for everything. So categorical programs is not in there, special education is not in there, just regular instruction, alternative learning program, our dropout rate engagement program, and then the district support programs. Our 4-year budget summary. This is a new requirement that came about 4 years ago. So we have been doing this exercise for the past 4 or so years. And so it shows you the forecast of our projections going into the next years. So it shows for the proposed budget for next year. We've already talked about that summary, beginning revenue, expenditures, ending fund balance. We talked about that at the beginning. But now you've got 3 more years in front of you in that same format. And primarily the purpose, I believe, on this is just looking at our ending fund balance and how that's coming along in our future years. We've got some revenue projections that are built into that. We have assumed that our levy, our 4-year levy, is renewed in these projections. And so you can see there is some rebuilding of our fund balance, but it's certainly not to pre-pandemic levels either. But it is more of a healthy place to be than where we're hovering.
Gina, can you explain the regionalization factor?
Certainly. So I've listed the regionalization factor there for the current year or for next year's budget. We have 2 regionalization factors. 16% is for what the allocation model uses for certificated staffing. And it's an allocation model. It's not aligned with our actual staff that we have. It's their allocation model. And then 13.5% is the regionalization factor that they're going to use on all other staff. And then the next, and I can tell you more about it, but I want to point out that the next year, it ramps down. 16% stays steady in the allocation model for certificated, but everyone else goes down to 12%. This is not a model that we believe makes sense for school districts, and we will be talking about it more. Okay. This is kind of a breaking point in my presentation because we'll be talking about our other funds. So I'm going to take a brief pause if you're needing to ask questions. And then I will carry on. So our Associated Student Body Fund is a wonderful fund. It is where all the fun happens, and it is funds that go in there are funds that support student activities and athletics. I want to also point out that it's not the whole picture because all of those programs are also supported by general fund, and they don't all go through ASB. So revenues come primarily from student body fees, activity gate receipts, fundraising, donations. A very important premise for ASB is that they're student government, and students are involved in the design of the budget, and student approval is required for use of ASB funds. We are budgeting to use all of the resources, but not a lot to say about that. Our debt service fund is here, and this fund is used only for principal and interest for payments on outstanding debt. Transfers in are being made to make payments on non-voted debt. So this gets a little technical. Non-voted debt. We have 2 issues of non-voted debt. One from 2017-18 was about 1 million or so issued to be able to purchase buses. And then when we get the revenue for the buses that the state provides, that helps fund and pay for the debt, but we have to transfer it, a transportation vehicle, to debt service. Debt service services the debt. The treasurer handles all of the county treasurers, Snohomish County Treasurer handles that. Same, the next issue was the capital projects. We had some non-voted debt there issued to jumpstart the projects that we had going for capital levy that was approved by the voters. But we issued the non-voted debt in order to jumpstart those projects. And then later, as the tax levy, capital levy elections occur, then we transfer to make and service the debt. Question?
Gina, when are we done paying off our bus jet?
We've got more years on that. I don't remember exactly, but it's more years. Whereas the capital projects one will be paid off. And a few more years.
2027.
2027. Yeah. So at least 10 more, I think, on the buses. Huh? 5 more? 5 more. Okay,
That's not
I'm
so
just
bad.
envisioning a piece of paper that had multiple lines still below. Okay. Capital Projects Fund, this is a lot of fun too. There's a lot of fun happening in our construction projects. We have been very busy, Brian and team, and the work that he does with the projects. The main things that we're budgeting for in next year is President's Elementary roof and building upgrades and Pioneer Elementary roof and building upgrades. And included in the budget is that we do have to make a transfer out of the fund and in the debt service to take care of the debt previously received to jumpstart those projects. Okay. Now moving right along, last fund, transportation vehicle fund. We will be getting about 520,000 from the state for that they pay in to help replace buses. And it's according to depreciation schedules of the fleet that we currently have. And so we are budgeting to basically fully expend resources in the transportation vehicle fund, giving us the capacity to purchase buses as we can. We have about 4 on order, 4 buses on order currently. And so those will be coming probably in September. But we do have capacity to continue to bring those on and purchase more. And if one is totaled, we'll have the capacity to take care of that too. Heaven forbid.
Vehicle. So you said this fund is simply to purchase. So the fuel and the maintenance comes out of the general fund?
Yes,
Gotcha.
bus drivers, fuel,
Okay.
maintenance. Yep. Okay. And then it has a piece to transfer to the, like we talked about, to the debt service fund to take care of the voted debt we issued previously to buy buses with. And that is coming to the end of my presentation today. Just revisiting that I will be coming before you again August 14. Because that is when we will have a public hearing. And we will be advertising in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks before that meeting. That we're going to have a public hearing on our budget adoption, and that's when we would propose to the board for adoption of the budget after the public hearing. And there is a law that school boards must adopt a budget by August 31st. And this is a draft. Just reiterating, there's no action, but certainly can try to answer any more questions.
I did preview the 200-page document just to get familiarized with how things were sorted. So I appreciate, I know at some of our study sessions, we were talking about a very efficient budget and to kind of get us built back up. So I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't hear any more questions.
All right.
Thank you very much. Next up is our student fee schedule for 23-24.
I thought I was done.
You thought you got a break, but
So we'll get our fee schedule up and I'm here to represent for board approval, the 23-24 student fee schedule. So our board policy and procedure 3520, it provides circumstances and guidelines for charging fees and requires that that schedule come to the board for approval each year. So aside from fundraiser type items, these are mostly for supplementary or optional type items and are not intended to exceed the costs. Where fines are involved, they're intended to cover replacement of lost or damaged property or materials. That's the general premise on any of the fines or fees that we charge for. Unless it's tuition. The district office compiles this schedule after requesting input from principals and departments for any changes to the schedule every year. And our board has a history of eliminating fees whenever possible and has been able to afford this for multiple years. However, as programs and services are continuing to rise in cost, some of those fees are needing to be increased, or in the case of athletic participation fees, we're asking that those be reinstated. So changes from the previous schedule, you'll be able to see them yellow highlighted, is the school meal prices. The Child Food and Nutrition Services Department recommends an increase of 25 cents for the paid full price student and adult breakfast, and same for lunches and the paid full price student and adult lunch prices. They don't just do this on a whim. They use OSPIs and federal program analysis guidelines that pretty well dictate to them the range that they need to be in for the costs to charge to for those that are paying.
Excuse me, when you say adult, is that staff?
Yes, adults
Huh.
can purchase and go through the line too.
Pizza day.
Not today. Not today.
There are some definite favorites, I think. And then the next change is in regards to the athletic fees. So the district is recommending reinstatement of the athletic participation fees at both the middle and high school levels. We do not receive any state funding for athletic program offerings, and this action is in alignment with the budget reduction plan that was previously adopted by the board. The fee would be 100 per season per athlete at the high school level and 50 per season per athlete at the middle school level, with the caveat that there's a max, there is a cap limit that you wouldn't pay for more than 2 seasons per athlete. So the fee maxes out at 2 seasons per athlete, with 3 seasons that are being offered. An athlete that participates in all 3 would pay for the first 2.
So it was 200 and on 300. Okay.
There you go.
So is it these for team sports or just for general PE?
This is for team sports, so for the athletics,
Regardless of the sport, it's the same price.
yes. So this helps support the transportation costs is probably the biggest piece that this would be considered to be supporting.
You may not know the answer to this, but that includes like the unified sports that just started at the high school. Or is that separate?
They are separate.
Okay,
Funded separately, there's a grant.
okay,
They wrote a grant and they have another grant that they're writing for next year.
Thank you. Gina, is this the same fee amount that we had previously?
It is.
So we didn't go up.
We did
We
not.
just
go up.
restored it to its original.
We restored it, and the model of the max of 2 seasons is what was in place before as well. So we did not recreate that model. We just went back to it.
And
And
then
there's still availability of fee waivers for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch.
that was my next question. Thank you for reading my mind.
I did put a note to myself, almost didn't. And that is all I have to say about that today, but I certainly can answer questions or try to. And this is the action.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the student fee schedule for 23-24 as presented?
I'll make a motion, we approve the 23-24 student fee schedule.
And second,
So moved and seconded to approve the 23-24 student fee schedule as presented. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly,
I,
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Thank you. Always sad. Okay, moving on. Next is our withdrawal prior to graduation annual report. Dr. Sweeting is going to share.
Yeah. So the policy 3123 requires a report to the board of how many students withdrew prior to graduation and for what reasons. And so this is going to give you that information. Carrie Hokason, Director of Equity and Student Wellbeing, she guards this and pulls this together, and I'm sharing this with you today, but it really, the focus is to help understand and avoid dropouts. So why do kids leave?
Mhm.
Now, there's reasons why they do leave. Some move, but some leave school to work. Some have medical reasons. Some just don't show, because after 20 days of no show, then we cannot, the state will not allow us to collect any funding for that reason.
and this counts in their senior year. This is a snapshot of the
for-
up to the graduation moment, and they just haven't done that. Okay.
So these are the recorded reasons that we can determine or that we know about. Here in is. Not used to the PDF. So this year, we didn't have reason codes for 16 students who withdrew before graduating. Last year, there were 20. So, we have 4 less than last year. Actually, that's zero, just we would know why students are not. But that why they leave before they graduate, and how can we help? That's the main idea, is can we problem solve and help them to stay connected and graduate? This year, 30 students withdrew before graduating, 9 from Arlington High School, 4 from Weston, 14 from Open Doors, and 3 from Stilley Valley. Last year, we had 35. So in both cases, just we're nudging a little bit better, knowing a little bit more. We're just trying to pay better attention.
Dr. Spitting, are we calculating then who might re-enroll? Because I know Weston captures, isn't that what Open Doors is? Are we capturing some, maybe? I'd be curious what percentage of students come back and loop and then actually come back and finish.
No,
I'm guessing that they might do that.
No, they do.
They do
And
do
then
that.
they're, that's kind of a reverse looking at it, but that would be good. Yeah. Re-engage, that's the whole, the Open Doors program, it's called the re-engagement.
Yeah,
So we try to capture them before they leave.
Right.
But keep them engaged, but it's re-engagement. Here's just how. So Arlington High School, this is by age and the reason. So you can see just as the reason, so it's 17 to 21. And you can see that, and sometimes we get this information from their family, sometimes we can't get a hold of the student, but we can get a hold of someone that knows them. You can see that for there's the 20+ days is really hard because we cannot continue. If they don't show, we can't continue to count them.
And that's cumulative, yes, not in a row.
It's in a row.
It's in a row.
Well, wait, it's in a row. It's in a row because if
I was
they're
gonna say, yeah.
19 days and then they show up, oh, good, we got them back.
Okay.
They're still with us, so they're not gonna be taken off the roll, but if it's 20 consecutive days. Okay.
So what's the difference between attendance, no show, and 20 days?
That's
Would
what
they
I
kind of be the same?
That's what I was about to
I
ask.
would think. Okay.
Brian?
Brian.
For open doors, if they don't show up one day a week in Open Doors, they, after like 2 or 3 weeks, they drop them. It's
Wow.
Open Doors that causes that.
Oh, okay.
Because if
That's
you
a
tell me
flag
it's
for
a
that.
21.
That makes sense.
But this is the high school, Arlington High School, not And
I
can you
have no
explain
idea. I
why
have 21.
21-year-olds?
It could be a life, we do have students that
skills?
stay. in
Yeah, I
that
guess
21, so it could be a
yeah.
life skills
Yeah.
student.
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
The next one is Weston.
Absolutely.
We skip around really fast.
Yeah.
So let's see, just the difference here.
20.
Here it's like, okay, not coming.
I would be really curious to know how many credits short they are, like how close are they to the finish line? Are they like just one class away? Are they like 6 credits away? Like how
We could- Oh, goes.
how
I know-
close are they?
Yeah, I would agree, then you can, yeah,
And I
That's
know
good
to
data.
be a part of the Open Doors program, they have to be significantly credit, deficient.
okay.
Like, are they one summer school class away from?
Well, I hope not. I hope that I have seen and heard the testimonies of those students that almost, and they were just like one credit and they
Yes, you don't want that to be the,
Stily Valley. Here's the data for Stily Valley. Open Doors. And stop share.
that's right, yes, there.
So that's what I have to show.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask what up at Arlington High School, there were 2 17-year-olds in the category GED per mom counselor. What does that exactly mean? Like their counselor dropped them, or mom said, you're not going to school anymore, or?
They probably just didn't show, and then the counselor was able to contact the home, or somebody from the school was able to contact them. And the mom said, my student is going to go through a GED program. We just need to know what the reason why they are not attending school.
Okay.
I know.
And by GED program, does that mean like they're just not going to the school, but they're still like getting their education?
Probably it could be through they could do it through us too, because our
Yeah.
Open Doors has the GED possibility. But they might be going through Everett Community College. They have a GED program there as well. Could be there. Good questions.
Next up is our career and technical education school to work report, and let's welcome Brian Long
Hello,
and
Lisa is gonna actually do most of the talking here. I'm just gonna get her going and I'm saying that. So Lisa is, again, one of the best employees I've ever hired. And the story, because she likes to get things done and do way more than the average employee. So I asked her if she didn't want to do this. She goes, of course I want to do this. Okay. So there you go. It's all her. She's gonna tell you what she does all day long.
Good evening, happy summer. So last year I came to this exact board meeting and I kind of talked about the OSPI directive of having work-based learning activities within all the CTE courses. So this is a follow-up to how I've tried to help the CTE department implement some of those directives from OSPI. I just hit space bar.
Should. Or click.
Okay, so I'll just click something. So this is kind of what I'm gonna go over, and all of these pieces fit into those OSPI directives. Last year, I showed you this graphic and it basically talks about the work-based learning activities, and it goes from career awareness down to career preparation. And it talks about bringing in guest speakers and workplace tours, college and career fairs, job shadows, and then finally internships, and how all of these pieces are helping launch our students into hopefully adulthood and being productive in society. So when we started career awareness, I had the opportunity to bring in 23 guest speakers. I brought them into the high school as well as Weston, and then I had the opportunity to work with Post Middle School and freshen up and bring in some new guest speakers down there. They cover topics from linguistics, engineering, finance, insurance, entrepreneur, web design. So all of these opportunities for students to get to the opportunity to hear from business leaders and people within the business, what they do and how they do it. I also had the opportunity to take several field trips. I was able to take 5 Weston students up to Northwest Carpenters Institute of Washington. That is a construction apprenticeship. They have a brand new building up in Burlington. It's fabulous. I was able to take 8 female students down to Girls Build at the Regional Apprentice program down in Marysville. And I actually had one student come up and I was like, why are you going? She's like, you told me to keep all my doors open and explore everything. I'm like, okay, let's go. And the student of color career conference also showed back up after COVID down at Everett Community College, and I was able to take 21 students. And then the WAVE tour, which is the Washington Apprentice Vocational Education Program, was up at the Northwest Carpenters Institute this spring, and they had 6 different apprenticeships come, and students could do hands-on projects throughout the day. So really giving our students the opportunity to experience things. We then go on to career exploration, and most of these events I do each year gives you kind of just a summary of what I do throughout the year. But I want to highlight 3 new ones. We, with the help of Dr. Sweeting and Mayor Tolberg and Joy Emery from Workforce Snohomish, were able to put on a program called Bridging School to Work in this September, where we invited local businesses to our high school and we put them to a school. We had them see what our career and technical classes were teaching and how we were teaching it and what we were teaching it, so they would understand how we can hopefully bridge our students into the workforce here. The skilled trades, we had that, but we did have it in a new location. We had it over by the stadium this year and took it out of the parking lot. And I think the venue was really good. It had really good flow. The other one we did was the Arlington Employment Expo that also came out of the Bridging to School to Work program. And we were able to bring in 32 businesses and 125 people, where they actually did resume review. They had the opportunity to do on-site interviews, follow-up interviews, and those types. So I thought that was really successful for the first year. So we're looking to do it again next year. Yes.
It's a quick question for you. I'm not sure about this, but in our mailers we get to our homes, I'm not sure if I've ever seen anything that's highlighted what you're doing or the success. Have we had much of that? Because I'm thinking,
Talking about,
pardon me?
or the one that comes from Gary, or the one that.
Possibly one, I'm thinking it's maybe something from Gary. It's usually maybe front, 2 middles in the back. It's just it's an open one. I just think that this would be something really key to get out to our constituents in the fall as we consider asking for levy bond money. And this is a huge, I think it's huge. And I think it's so positive. What I mean, obviously, Brian's saying great things about what you're doing. It's very active. And I know my own self, having 3 kiddos who are entering that workforce environment. This is something that says Arlington is making a difference. And the fact that we're working in tandem with the city, and I've been to a couple of events where it was, I know Mayor Barb was there, and it was, I forget which one, maybe Building School to Work. I would like to see that. I think that would be really powerful. And we need to highlight anything awesome that we're doing. And right, I mean, that's our point. Our point in education is to get these kids college and career ready. And we can say we're doing that.
And we do press releases.
Yeah.
You know, there have been several press releases about this, but I think the more we can tell the good things about what we're doing, the better.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, there are things on
Falls
the,
on me too, because I just get on to the next thing and I don't communicate to you, so.
Yeah. I think publicizing it, and I think a flyer is kind of that tangible thing. It can lay around and people can see it.
And the final new thing that I brought this year, and we modeled it at Weston, I worked with Katie and I worked with Terra Staffing Group. We actually brought in several individuals and we helped our juniors and their seniors do resume development, which is directly the high school and beyond thing. And so then we brought them in a month later and we did mock interviews with our juniors and our seniors, and the interviewers were able to give feedback to the students, positive and, you know, what they need to work on. It worked really well at Weston, and I'm sure that I will do that. I'm just trying to figure out how to bring something like that to the high school, because it would need to be on a much bigger level. Not that we can't do it, but trying to work with some other individuals to try to figure out how we can make that work. And then we go on to some additional career exploration. I was invited by 14 teachers into 25 different classes. Had the opportunities to talk with lots of classes about the introduction to the Career Center, what I do every day, how I can help them. But I was also asked to come in to do specific presentations, one on medical careers. You can go into medical careers with zero experience, or you could go in with 18 years. So the gamut and the opportunities that you have at all levels to work in healthcare are absolutely there. Gave a couple of presentations on career exploration and researching careers and how to do that and what that looks like. And then obviously a big one, obviously in the fall, is applying to college FAFSA and scholarships. That's one that I need to continually stress. One of the other things that I worked on this year is bringing parents into the loop a little bit more. So offered evening office hours. So not only would I do the lunch times with the students, but then I would have evening office hours and I would duplicate the presentation. So I was able to do one on work-based learning. If the student is working and they've got a career and technical education class that it makes them eligible, how does that work and how do they earn credit for that? Applying to college FAFSA night. I did one in October, but saw that there was a need to have another one in February. So we did that. Paying for college and preparing for scholarships. And then I did a couple just open office hours. What do you need to know? How can I help you? I was able to, with the technology that I do have in the Career Center, I'm able to have parents come in and Zoom at the same time. So I can have students on Zoom and I can have parents in front of me. And so it worked out really well. And I'll continue to do that next year. We then jump ahead and we go to career preparation, work-based learning. This is actually when they're working and they're earning credit. They do need to have a CTE eligibility course in order to earn credit for the work that they are doing. This year I had 20 state students inquire and I had 10 complete. The percentage of about 36%. Last year I had 44 and 14 completed. I'm not sure where it was. I think some of it had to be eligibility, but some students like come in and I'm like, have you talked to your supervisor about earning credit? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, we kind of need to have your supervisor involved. So that's often a barrier. So I'm trying to figure out how I can do meetings up front and have that conversation with them because it is a lot of paperwork. But once the paperwork gets done, I actually had one student was like, I wasn't even going to do this. There's so much paperwork. And they're like, it's actually really easy when you do it. And I'm like, literally, it's super easy, but it is a process to begin with. So trying to work with that. And one of the things I'm going to try to pump up last year is in the spring, I was able to actually hook up 2 students with job shadows. One student did a job shadow with a kindergarten teacher. She came back, she said, I am never being a kindergarten teacher. I'm like, that is okay. I'm like, that is.
She was with the wrong teacher.
I'm like, that is okay. She's like, no. And then I had another student do a half-day job shadow with an interior design. And she's actually taking an interior design class right now. So that was a really good fit. Was able to hook up some other meetings. They weren't full job shadows, but had a student have the ability to talk with an engineer at Boeing. I did took a student up and met with them to do equine therapy, real estate photography. So some things I can't always find. I'm working on a marine biologist right now for the fall. But so sometimes I hit walls, but I try to get the students to at least have that conversation with somebody real who's really doing it and what it's like.
Lisa, how many hours do they have to work at a work-based learning job to get credit?
For the work-based learning, if they are getting paid, it's 180 hours for a half a credit.
Right.
The summer internship, which we'll get to next, is 90 hours because it's unpaid.
And the kid has to follow all the state rules. That
Yeah.
is actually the hardest. part.
Like not working
They can
too
work
many
more than
hours?
20 hours a week.
Yeah.
They can't work past 10 o'clock. They can't, there's lots of rules.
And somebody's checking to make sure that it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we find all kinds. It's like, yeah, you're just, please stop giving us this. Yeah.
And so right now, we're in the thick of the summer internship program. This year, I had 13 businesses with 18 possible internships. That number is actually much higher because Providence, we are hooking onto their high school program and they can take as many as we want. So I currently have 5 students doing medical internships at Providence. Now theirs is 100 hours because that's their program. Ours is only 90, but they have to do 100 hours, but it actually works towards nursing school. They can actually get letters of recommendation because they've got the 100 hours. There's also eligible for scholarships. At the end of the summer, they'll also do a job fair and hopefully have a lot of departments so the students can go and talk to a bunch of different departments about what it's like. One thing we changed this year is the feedback we received. They really wanted to be able to interview their interns. So this brought a whole new dynamic. Not all students got chosen, which is real life. And so we had to have those conversations about this was not your first choice. You didn't get this. Do we want to go on to your second choice? One student said, no, I didn't get it, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. And the other students, we were able to do their second options. So that was really great. And these were my breakdowns, but I have to say I currently have 18 students because one came in at the last minute. So I'm currently working with 18 students in summer. Got done about 3/4 of my first site visits, and they all seem to be going pretty well. I have one pretty quiet student in a very extroverted internship. So those are the conversations we have, you know, and so it's okay. But kind of working a little bit more with that student to make sure that talking a lot every single day isn't.
Please have another question.
Yep.
Do you have a goal in your program to have a percentage of participation? I mean, this seems so awesome, and I love this sort of support, and not everyone's right. So if if you're going more career minded, you're the trades or getting a job out of high school. So not necessarily the college kids, maybe. But I'm wondering, should there be a goal, or do we have a goal to say, this is a percentage we would like to see, like, here's our, starting point of how many students are participating, how many carry through actually to the end.
You mean in the whole high school? Or in
Yeah,
high school?
yeah.
It's-
Of our high school age, we'll include Weston in there.
It's 100%.
So 100% of,
All of our students are participating in CTE, because the goal is that Lisa isn't creating these programs, they're just coming from our CTE classroom.
Right.
It shouldn't be so much that Lisa creates the environment for the
Okay.
kids to bloom in, really.
right,
But it really has to start with my teachers, and so Lisa and my teachers do a lot of communicating. So
Okay.
that she can get fed the kids that are ready for that next step.
okay,
The very basic of all of this, like the one step down from what she's showing, is the classroom.
okay.
So,
So we need.
yeah, nothing less than 100% is acceptable in my
Okay.
opinion. So
Okay,
we love more kids to participate. We definitely have that capacity. It's getting students to participate in anything beyond the basics is really what we have.
and do you think that's from the students themselves, or do you think parental nudging participation would
I
be?
think COVID exacerbated a problem that was already happening with this this atomistic individualism that we exist in, and my world is the most important.
Okay,
We're not stepping out of that very well,
okay,
and a lot of anxiety, because to do any of these programs, you have to step up.
Yeah.
You have to show up, and that's real tough.
okay. So we had this before COVID, where it's
Yeah,
exacerbated.
it just got, yeah, and it's not just us, like
Yeah.
across the board, you're seeing this generation is struggling to engage their world.
And pre-COVID, we were just like the internship, the summer internship program was just in
Just,
infancy.
yeah, it
That's
We
what I
we
thought.
had hired, we had worked with a consultant too, and the city to try to develop this, and then COVID happened. And last year we had 10 students, right?
We had 9 students finish.
So what that means is we're growing this,
Yeah.
Okay.
and expanding.
It does.
Getting those kids to share that message, whether it's, and going back to the kindergarten example, whether the kid learns that they love the job or dislike the job, we're not overly concerned with that. What we do really emphasize is that the student has a good time,
Mhm.
and that they enjoy what they're doing and they're learning, and they learn to work. So it's this weird balance, and we bring in all of these businesses, we bring them to the school, we feed them dinner, and we go over very specifically, how should you address this? How should you work with this kid? What do they know and what do they not know? And that's probably the biggest aha for most of them, is they think our students can do anything and everything when it comes to technology, and it's like, whoa, this is what they can do with technology. They don't do this. Like,
Right, there's an expectation and there's a reality.
yeah, and helping them see that, and sometimes they're way too low for the kids, like, no, our kids can do way better than that. And then other times they're like, I'd like our students to do some law research. I almost burst out laughing. Maybe not. So it's helping them see that, so that the kid and the employee, they all succeed. So,
Yeah, I think that's an important part, is bridging that, having the conversation with both parties is really.
And we do put the students through an internship class as well.
That's
And our biggest thing is show up.
Yeah.
It's all those soft skills.
Yeah.
You know, if you show up and you're teachable
Yeah.
You'll learn
Growth
something.
mindset.
Exactly. So my goals for 23-24. This actually transpired on graduation day at Weston. Jeremy brought an incredible individual into my office and said, she needs some direction. And I went, okay. I said, money's no object, time's no object, you have no obstacles, what would you like to do? And she's like, I'd like to be in the medical career. McKinney-Vento kid, within a half an hour, I had a list of 7 opportunities for her in order to get almost a free education. Whether she wanted to go to school, whether she wanted on the job, whatever she wanted. I need to connect with those students to know what resources are out there. So Jeremy and I are working on an intake way that students who register for Open Doors will have the opportunity to meet with me immediately to know how I can help. Our students on college bound scholarships, our McKinney-Vento, our foster kids, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw SBLC in here. I've had a conversation with Kim as well. I need to reach these students a little bit more, even if it's only like once, and they at least know how I can help them and what they're looking for. That's something that's really important to me, especially with the resources that are available for them. This is life-changing. These are life-changing opportunities. And even if they don't take them, I want to be able to say, these are opportunities for you. Hopefully connecting with more businesses in order to do more job shadows. The 2 were so successful this past year that I'd really like to be able to arrange to do that more. And the more I continue to meet with businesses and grow these relationships, hopefully that will happen. Maybe being able to do some more field trips with students to do more focused skilled trades and apprenticeships. And then connecting with the middle school. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. I've got some ideas and some plans, but I'm not sure what that looks like, but just hopefully maybe getting down into the middle school so they get to know me earlier. So it's not their senior year. They're like, who is this person? And just letting them know what I can do. Any questions for me?
I think you're great.
I know.
And all of these programs minus her salary, she's only running all of the expenses is only $8,600. All of it, all of the fairs, all the college fairs, all the public.
Bargain.
It really is. So,
And I mean, I love this job. I mean, I love the students. I love the support of the staff. The entire school district has just been incredibly supportive. And we are 4 students and it's 1 student at a time. It is 1 student at a time, and that's what we can do. And they're only ready to hear when they're ready to hear. Sure.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Awesome. Gonna hurt those people not being our teachers.
Next up, we'll have our teachers out of field. We'd like to welcome Eric Young, our Executive Director of Human Resources. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, this is you may recall this from January, I think. We had the initial round of teachers out of field, and when we were doing the final submission, 2 more popped up at that point in time. And so we're bringing them to you. We're required by law to have them approved by the board, even though we rely on OSPI a lot of times to run the report for us. And so these were 2 that hadn't flagged before. So just asking for approval tonight, like we did before.
So they have endorsements in one area, but then they're asking to teach
Correct.
something else.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you don't have the endorsement, but we're saying, yes, we're letting you teach something.
Letting them teach with support. So typically it's a PLC team or something like that they're working with. I think in Kim's situation, it's an online, so she's supporting an online course for the
Oh, okay.
students. Roel Ubungan is actually teaching a 6th grade math, which she has taught before, I believe.
And we do that because it's just budgetary reasons and, okay,
Well, maybe there's not enough math teachers to teach all the math sections, so you
Right.
have somebody that,
okay,
you're kind of forced to fill some holes here and there.
gotcha.
And it's temporary.
We try to make it as temporary as possible.
Otherwise they would be required to be certified in that new field.
Well, we've had some teachers that are on this list for years and years.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I get it.
yeah, Nathan Davis, for instance, at the high school has been on this list, I think, ever since I've been here, right before that. Well, as soon as it started, it hasn't been around forever. This is kind of a new thing, new designation, but It used to be highly qualified, now it's out of field, so they've changed it a little bit. We're trying to keep up with it, but typically if somebody has an endorsement. And we believe that they're qualified to teach that course, but they don't have a specific endorsement for it. Like Nathan Davis teaches. He has a physics endorsement, but doesn't have another science endorsement. I think he teaches. I can't remember the class he teaches, but it shows up every time because he teaches it every year, but. He's a physics teacher, so he's got, science background.
Yeah.
Any more questions? This is the action item. Do we have a motion to approve the teachers out of field report?
Make a motion, we approve the teachers out of field.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the teachers out of field report. Madam Clerk. Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Livette. Aye. Director Knapp. Aye. Thank you. Next up, we'd like to welcome Brian Lewis with our annual review of geographic attendance areas. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. It's the night of annual or policy required annual reviews. The first one that I'm presenting to you tonight is the annual review of geographic attendance areas. Generally, this is a pretty tame subject. Tonight, I want to introduce a concept for longer term thinking in regard to one of our attendance areas, or actually two of them. So board policy 3130 requires an annual review and presentation to you of the attendance areas. Tonight, we're going to talk about the policy briefly. Where do we get the data for this information? The feeder school structure, if you're not familiar with that term, we'll talk about it a little bit more. The attendance boundaries we've got in place right now for elementary schools, and what we think may be happening in the future in terms of elementary attendance boundaries. So policy 3130 requires that we review our attendance areas on an annual basis. It also has other requirements in terms of where students attend school and their ability to request a transfer to a school that's outside of their residential area. It also gives us guidelines to consider when we're thinking about changing an attendance boundary. And these are the guidelines that are presented in the policy. Minimize disruption of established learning programs, maintain established neighborhood groupings, keep siblings in the same elementary or middle school, and adjust class loads to available space. These are the guidelines for us to use when we're considering changes to attendance areas. The information that you're going to see tonight comes from a couple of sources. One of them is the enrollment forecast that Flow Analytics did for us in 2021, that we received in 2022, and then some map information from the city of Arlington. The feeder structure that we use, it's a term of art for public schools or any school system that has more than one building. It's descriptive of where do kids who attend a specific elementary school go to middle school. For example, in Arlington, P's go to H. That's the mnemonic device that I was taught when I first came here to help me remember which schools go to which elementary schools go to which. Middle school P's are Pioneer and Presidents, and they go to H. Howard. The other school buildings go, or the elementary buildings, Kent Prairie and Eagle Creek, go to Post Middle School. Both of those middle schools be Arlington High School or Weston High School or SVLC, as the case may be. The Flow Analytics produced this map showing for us the district attendance boundaries in 2021, 2022. They have not changed. Yellow is the Eagle Creek attendance area. Blue is the President's attendance area. Green is the Pioneer attendance area. And red or salmon is the Kent Prairie attendance area. We can see each school is shown on its map of which attendance area it's assigned to. These are maps that were generated by the city of Arlington. Again, these attendance areas have not changed. I wanted to point out a couple of features to you while we're here, though. This is Eagle Creek, a little different color, but it's got an inset of Old Town, the Old Town area. And when we talk about changes in the attendance areas that could be spurred by population growth within the attendance area. And the population growth that we expect to experience, it's one of them could occur within the boundaries of Eagle Creek Elementary. I'm going to go to another attendance area map just to point it out to you so it's more clear. This is Kent Prairie's attendance area, and the area that may affect Eagle Creek's enrollment is really in this area right here. This is an area that may be subject to development of single-family homes. Most of the rest of the development that's occurring within the boundaries of the school district, if it's outside of the county, it's going to be limited to 12 single-family homes developments, rural development, or it's going to be within the city of Arlington, and it would be multifamily, which could include apartment buildings or duplex townhomes.
Brian,
Yes,
give me an idea. Is this near Starbucks and Bartels? Where is that? I don't know where this is. So where's that area that's gonna be possibly single family?
Kind of behind your house.
this is so the boundaries here, this is Highway 9,
Okay,
this is Burn Road, this is Tweed Road,
oh, that's Tweet. Oh, it's
so it's that way, generally
yeah.
southeast, it's in that direction.
Okay,
So you'd have to go to the hospital, down Stillaguamish, take a left on Tweed,
it's
Or
oh, by
east.
Tweet and then,
go up the hill,
wow,
follow that road.
interesting.
So a huge area that could potentially support, I think that the number that I was provided was 3,000 homes. So that's waiting on a master plan, development plan.
On
to-
the city
to be
line.
formulated,
Yeah.
by a developer
Oh, developed.
that submits to the city.
Oh, God. Wow.
Brian, can I ask a historical question?
Sure.
How did Glen Eagle somehow have space saved for Pioneer Elementary?
So that was a negotiation with the developer, when because that's another master plan development. When they were applying to the city, there was some leverage exerted by the city to set aside a certain amount of land for an elementary school to serve that space.
And that could happen to this space.
It could,
Do they have leverage to do that again?
well, it's kind of, the leverage kind of falls on us because we have a impact fee in place, and we could work with the developer, any developer of any property, that in lieu of an impact fee, that they could provide a space for an elementary school.
Because we were talking about if the enrollment goes more on the upswing, then that would.
Actually, almost 3,000.
Yeah. If there's
Few kiddos
3,000
in there.
Homes, how many students with your algorithm, how many students does that create?
Well, it's 0.3 in a single family home. Right now, each single family home is generating 0.3 of students, so 3,000,
That's the
0.3,
school.
3,000.
That's a math question.
Yeah, it is 900.
You've got.
That's
Come on,
like
come on,
another.
come on,
That teacher here,
engineer.
yeah, 0.3 and 3,000, how much is that? 10% is 300, so.
Yeah.
900 kids, it's 900 kids.
Yeah.
So that, depending on the age range that they're in, and it's not all gonna happen at once, it takes years for that kind of capacity to be built within a development to house all those kids, and we're facing demographic headwinds right now, and that birth rates are declining. What is, potentially a contributor to our student population in lieu of birth rates are people moving into the area from other locations. If we continue to experience the kinds of jobs that we've got here, then that's a strong likelihood.
How likely is this project? Like, I know they've been talking about it for 15 years or something.
Yes, for a long time.
Are they gonna keep talking about it for 15 more years, or is there traction?
Well, I mean, that depends on the marketplace. And if there's a need for these kinds of, we really don't have a lot of space within the boundaries of the urban growth area in Arlington that could support single family home construction of this magnitude. Most of the single family home construction within the UGA is going to be like somebody tearing down a house.
An existing home.
For more, because the zoning allows that kind of density of construction.
I'm trying to rezone my neighborhood.
Or be rezoned too. So that's one area of concern, to be, reviewed in the future. You're gonna see a recommendation that's included in the master facilities process or plan to revisit our enrollment estimate in 26, but I'll get to that in just a minute. So this is Eagle Creek, and these are all attached to the board plate. You've got them for your reference. Kent Prairie, Pioneer, and one of the other areas of concern, as far as attendance areas go, is Pioneer. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but there are some developments in the works right now along Highway 9, 74 unit townhome development. Townhomes produce the same number of students as a single family home, even though they're multifamily. And then here's Highway 9 up here, and within this attendance area, there's potential for some apartment complex, kids coming from apartment complexes under construction, or it's almost done. And then where's 51st? Behind Amazon, there's an apartment building over here that it's could 574 apartments.
And that's
Instead of
Arlington,
increase that.
that's Arlington,
Yes,
okay.
Is there another one going in down on 67th, like by
The bottom of Gleneagle.
the bottom, by the pond apartment?
yeah, those are built, they're still filling those.
Yeah.
And that's within the Pioneer tenants boundary. Now, the reason that's an area of concern is within the master facilities plan is another document titled portable feasibility study, where we look at each elementary site and judge its ability to support additional portable classrooms. And Pioneer is very difficult. So in the other area that we've seen growth in at the elementary level is Eagle Creek Elementary. So we don't have to wait for that to happen. We're taking steps to address that right now. I'm gonna get through this map. President's Elementary, again, not a whole lot happening here except for maybe rural cluster developments of 12. A few homes. So here's an excerpt from the master facilities plan that talks about our steps to address growth at the elementary level that we've already experienced. It may not be continuing, but we've already experienced it, at least at Eagle Creek. And the response to that was to add 2 portable buildings, 2 modular buildings that have 2 classrooms, each will be 4 classrooms. So we've taken care of that part of Eagle Creek so far. We'll see what happens with enrollment in the future. But at Pioneer, the response would be a little bit different than what we're doing at Eagle Creek. Pioneer, because I referenced the portable feasibility study earlier, it's very difficult to replace portable buildings at Pioneer Elementary because the setbacks from the property line, the location of underground utilities there, and the way the building is set on the property. It's an awkward location. So we could add portable classrooms there, but because of the location of utility lines, there's easements around those that we cannot build on. That the portable building may be placed far away from the main structure. That causes security issues. It separates the students in the program from the rest of the students in the building. It's not the most, it's not the optimal response. Another approach there may include an attendance boundary review between Pioneer and Kent Prairie. If Kent Prairie has additional space available, or any space available, in lieu of adding portables at Pioneer, we would convene a boundary review committee and consider changing attendance boundaries for Pioneer and Kent Prairie. But that's not till 2026, after we review our enrollment at that time and see if we're heading in the same direction that we are right now. Okay, so that's the little twist that normally this presentation is no changes. But I wanted to give you a heads up that we've been talking about this in the facilities advisory committee. and it is considered in the master facilities plan. Any questions?
We would like to please move to the next one, our annual review of our risk management program. Really lovely. Brian, do you attend our planning commission meetings for the city or watch them later?
Yeah, so one of the things that's been really helpful to me is the city of Arlington is very transparent. They have great resources available on their website, including subscriptions to mailing lists where you can receive the agenda, the minutes for any city body, the city council, planning commission, airport commission, parks and recreation commission, the civil service commission, all those different bodies publish an agenda, they publish minutes. So they're really helpful. So yes, I follow those very closely. So policy 6500 in the annual, or whoa, I gotta stop this. It's not what's showing. Sorry. So another one of our annual required reports is our liability insurance program. And there are multiple issues related here, including policy driven that require us to report to you what our liability insurance program is or provider is. I'm going to review briefly the coverages, benefits, and costs as well. So policy 6500 requires that we have a risk management program and complete an annual review. Policy 6530 also requires that we have sufficient liability insurance to protect the district against claims or wrongful acts of staff. There are some components of the program that we purchased through the Washington Schools Risk Management Pool. We've been with them for longer than I've been here. And there's some components of the plan that apply specifically to board directors. I'm going to point those out to you. Liability coverage, you can see the different coverages and deductibles that we have associated with that. This is split into two components, general and automobile. Automobile is a little bit is separate because it's buses, cars that move around on the road. The general liability doesn't necessarily apply to those because it's most of those objects are static, they don't move around. Other liability coverages include errors and omissions. You can see these coverages are fairly high because both of these areas there's a lot of trouble to be had if somebody were to make a mistake, or purposefully or just negligently. This is one of those areas where there's specific application to members of the board of directors. This and employment practices also as well. I included with this board attachment a booklet from the risk pool titled Member Review. There's more detail about the different types of coverages, these coverages of that member review. Employment practices, this is protection against an error and omission in terms of how we employ staff members or how we treat those staff members. Again, this is something that also specifically applies to the board of directors or specific call outs in the policies for the board of directors. Each one of these programs also has an excess liability coverage applied to it as well, beyond the $10 million coverage. But there is a cap on it of $70 million. Hopefully we never have this experience. We've got to tap into that and use that coverage. Our costs have been increasing. There are a number of reasons for this. Primarily among them is the number of players in the reinsurance marketplace, which is, if you think of reinsurance is like a wholesale operation. They sell it to retailers. The risk pool is the retailer, and we buy it from the risk pool. The reinsurance market, the wholesalers there are fewer and fewer of them since September 11, 2001 terrorist attack in New York. It really narrowed down the number of participants in that. And K-12 in particular has seen a contraction in the providers that are there because of the claims that have been paid out, but not from us, not from our actions, but from other K-12 districts that have generated, created claims against policies that have been huge. We have not been there. In fact, our claim history is fairly boring, which is great because it helps us keep our rates down. Just within that annual member review, there's a table. And it shows a modification factor that applies to us. And so there's a base rate and then a modification factor, which reflects our own experience with the risk pool. And out of the 7 different forms of coverage, we're either in the top 10 or top 20% on 6 of those in terms of our performance. So we're doing really well. It's on one of them, auto physical damage, auto liability, where we're not doing so well. And we're working with the risk pool to help us. It's primarily bus accidents that may or may not be caused by us. I don't understand how anybody could hit a school bus, but it happens. They're big and yellow. So we're working with the risk pool and strategies to help us reduce our collisions with other vehicles. Yes, ma'am.
Do you expect this trend of increased prices, premiums to keep going up and next year higher and higher and higher?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
It's
everything.
just a simple
Yeah.
market conditions. There's fewer and fewer wholesalers, and when they have more say, they have more power. There's not a lot of competition. And this is an international thing. This is not just related to the United States. Most of our risk pool, when they buy insurance from a reseller, they go to London and negotiate with them. That's where most of the action happens. And it's not just us, it's across the world.
Thank you for that very uplifting
Yes.
report. Next, we get to hear from you again about our emergency response drills and emergency readiness. Also an uplifting topic.
I try not to look at it as depressing or downer because it helps us stay out of trouble, helps us protect lives when we take these actions. Okay, so an annual report of drills and emergency readiness. There's a policy that defines what our responsibilities are to comply with RCW 28A. You can see the rest of it up there, which requires us to have a safe school plan. And within that safe school plan is a further requirement that we have at least one safety related drill per month. And that drill has to incorporate one of the 3 functional responses, the basic functional responses: shelter in place, lockdowns, and evacuations. And we are also required to conduct an earthquake drill and have a reunification plan. The functional responses and the building readiness for an emergency is primarily carried out through EMART, Emergency Management Response Team, which I'm the facilitator for that committee. It's made up of assistant principals or principals at times. Also includes representation from support service and transportation and technology. Indication that we have they can be joining us as well. One of the linchpins for the program is the earthquake drill that we conduct in September. We do this in September. Even though the state does this in October, in my first year here, we did the earthquake drill in October, and it was raining, and we basically had to cancel the drill because it was blowing cats and dogs. A very wise person told me that you make 6,000 people go outside in the rain, you're gonna be right out of town. on the rail. So I listened to that person, and instead of scheduling in October, we put it in to September, where we've got a better chance of better weather, because it's important for us to be able to practice these drills, because the earthquake drill incorporates multiple components of the emergency response. Not only do we have to practice drop, cover, and hold in the classroom building, we have to practice evacuation and all of the things that support an evacuation, like getting class list ready and making sure that we can take attendance there. We've got first aid stations ready to deploy and get ready for parent reunification on the site as well. So there's so many things that happen associated with that earthquake drill. And it sets the tone for the rest of the year as well. It doesn't serve us any purpose to wait till the end of the school year to practice these kinds of things, because we may have to institute, we may have to do reunification. Better to practice early, so we got our ducks in a row. We have to do it the rest of the year. This is a picture from the earthquake drill that we conducted in September of last year in the district office. We've set up for a reunification at Howard Middle School. And again, this is practice for us to get ready in case we have to conduct it throughout the rest of the year. We did this for real. We did a real reunification in 2019. And that impressed upon us the importance of being prepared to do that. We may not do a physical preparedness exercise. We'll do a walkthrough this year. Every few years to practice on site and get a reunification site set up and walk our staff through it so they understand what happens. We also have our response to emergencies page on the website, which covers our functional responses, lockdown, lockout, and evacuation. That gives the community an opportunity to understand what it is that's happening if we have to conduct a lockdown or a lockout in a school building. We can refer them to this via message to home so that they've got something to look at and understand what's happening. Okay, that's my reports. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Brian, for all of your reports. Next up, we'll have our conflict of interest annual report.
So we have a policy that at 1610, it talks about being transparent about any conflicts of interest. And so in the 17-18 school year, we began tracking this, and there's different reasons. One of the things we did with this document starting in October of 2017 is we were logging when somebody abstains, because when there's a conflict, the person, a board member would be abstaining and they would say the reason. This year, there were no the two abstentions were not because of conflicts, really, they were just people, two board members abstained, and it wasn't because of any conflict, it was just they abstained, and we just keep record of that. And that's why, it's important that we know the reason why the person is abstaining when they say I'm abstaining because, or at least they've made that statement before in that area of transparency. So that's all I have to share with you. And it's just informational and just being transparent to our public. And as you notice, the years, not this last year, but in the previous years, reasons why maybe a board member might have a spouse that is an employee and they would receive a reimbursement. And so then they would abstain from approving that reimbursement. So those are the types of reasons. Sure. It could be that a board member has an interest outside of being a board member of a business that is, has been hired to do some work. So abstaining from that.
Right, well, thank you for sharing and keeping us transparent and above board. Next up, we have our public information program report. I'd like to welcome Gary Sable, our Director of Communication. Wrap up this evening.
I beg your pardon?
Well, you're here at the
Finale.
The finale.
But that's
yeah.
right, that's right, exactly.
Fireworks.
What-
So we
So we have
No
another,
pressure, Gary.
Right. another riveting annual update to give you. You've seen these many times, but this one is the public information program report. Thank you. This policy 4,000, this is presented annually to the board, and I just want to kind of walk through some of the things that are required. So the superintendent's annual report is one of the ways that's communicating with the district and the community, and this one in particular is published by the finance department. So that's the one that Gina and her team work on. It's great. We also have an annual report, which is sent out when the school performance reports are sent out, which is about January, February time.
Yeah.
And those are, so the school performance reports are including all the school newsletters, the school websites, and those are updated annually. Press releases, that's another way we communicate. And typically, press releases are the stories when I go out to the schools, or if there's something going on. That's kind of how we share those via a press release. And so this will give you kind of the number of press releases we've done. In 2021, we had 38 press releases. Again, keep in mind, this was during COVID. Last year was better, 43, and this year we've got 49. So they're increasing again once we're kind of out of the whole COVID thing. So, but press releases are great. That's kind of how we communicate, not only with our families, but the media. The next time you see media coverage, unfortunately, the media kind of keeps contracting. We used to have 2 local papers, Arlington Times, North County Outlook. Those are both kind of gone as far as I know. And so we rely on sending it more to like the Everett Herald, Seattle Times, and of course, broadcast media too. And we've got a few hits on some of the press releases. It's really hard when they're based in Everett or Seattle to get to Arlington to cover a story. And we did have King 5 come last month for the A building, which is awesome. So yeah, but because of that, we're relying more on other ways to communicate information out to our families and community members, and that's through social media typically. We do use Twitter and Facebook. Those are kind of the 2 main ones we use. We branch out to Instagram, and we also are using Nextdoor, and that's to hit different demographics. Certain age groups tend to focus on certain social media platforms. We also use YouTube, but for instance, this meeting is being broadcast on YouTube. And again, so that's just more ways to, again, communicate between the district and our community. And so the media coverage is kind of hard to get that one out. But we have had some coverage. One thing that's not here is the Our Schools. You mentioned the Our Schools community newsletter that's sent out periodically throughout the school year. That's another way. Certainly the annual survey, this is just, the one that my department works on, is the annual survey. That's the one that goes out to families, staff, and students. And that's a great feedback. You next month we'll get next month.
Maybe out in August.
What is it? August?
August 21st.
August, yes, you'll get a report. I'll share that during that meeting. But there are a number of surveys that we do throughout the year that may not include that. And then, of course, the Voice Opportunity has expanded since Dr. Sweeting got here. It started, which is a hand, now it's expanded quite a bit, so that's great. Okay, so other parts of the policy for policy 4,000 talks about how district communication can't be used to endorse a political campaign. For instance, for our levies, you'll notice that from the district, it's all factual. It's very neutral. It's strictly the facts of what is being presented. We can't, we pro or con or anything like that. So, and that's really so we don't get in trouble with the Public Disclosure Committee. And I believe there'll be some training coming up.
I'm working on.
Yeah, in a future meeting. So, and that's just a refresher on how to stay out of trouble with the PDC, because you don't want those types of fines. And then the other part of this policy talks about the discipline data is shared annually with the ACE committee, and that's I believe Carrie Helgeson shares that. So, but then that's policy 4,000, and then the last part is public records requests and records retention. So I just wanted to show this because this is kind of interesting how this increased, but like if you look at 2022 and then 2023,
the numbers have really increased a lot with the number of public records requests that my department receives. So far this year, and I guess more than that now, we've almost matched what we had in all of 2022. So it's just, I'm not quite sure what the reason is for that, but it's just something that I thought was kind of interesting. And I would say a lifesaver was that next request tracking software. If without that, I don't know how we've been able to track all this stuff. It's been really, we've been really complicated. So anyway, yeah, it's a great product, but yeah, that's kind of that. Oh, yes, question.
How long does it take you to fulfill some of these requests, and how massive are they? How
Yeah, it all depends on the request. Some.
are some of
yeah,
them massive and overwhelming, or?
A handful can be massive.
And require legal counsel.
Yes, I work closely with our legal counsel on some of them. I would say the vast
all.
majority are pretty straightforward. It only takes, I usually put a 30-day window on a lot of these things. Some can be installments, can take a lot longer. We had one a couple years ago that it was many installments, so it was quite convoluted. So, but yeah, it's all kind of depends on what they're looking for. So.
It's not too overwhelming, even though it's doubled in size.
Yeah, again, it all kind of depends on what, and I work closely with a lot of different departments in the schools, depending on what they're asking.
It's certainly the time and the money involved in responding to these record requests has increased. Because we've had to contact legal counsel to get direction. And also interpretation on certain things, because some things, when we get a request, sometimes they're vague, you know, we don't quite understand and we need to respond appropriately. And Gary, you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
And I thank you for that. And yes, the next request tracking
It's
software
been-
is great. But it does take a tremendous amount of time to respond appropriately and get the information out and that in a timely manner. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our informational item portion. We'll start with our superintendent's report, Dr. Sweeting.
So one of the things I was going to talk about, and Brian Lewis already mentioned them, the projects are in full force. So we have 2 boilers that were headed to Pioneer. However, in transport, they had a little challenge. They were damaged in transport. So we're working on the getting those taken care of, but we'll move forward with that once we get the ones back that are not damaged. So the next thing is the KP traffic queuing lane is it's in full force. So very, very good. And then the HVAC work at Weston is on track. And Brian's working with this team for the portables at Eagle Creek. And thank you, Brian Lewis, for tremendous amount of work of making those things happen. And then I wanted to say summer school is going on. We have credit retrieval and advanced credit work being completed at the high school. And we also have the cool bus that's going around the communities. There is some impact when we reinstated the summer fee for these kind of programs. We have about half the number of kids. We did about 300 last year, maybe about 150 this summer. And the our school publication that Gary and Mr. Sable talked about, it's going to be sent out to all of our families soon, really soon. And it's really well done, and it celebrates the projects that we've completed. It celebrates our graduations and other successes this last year. And then finally, happy birthday, Mr. Kingman, this month.
Thank you.
His birthday's coming up.
Yes,
20.
it is. I don't count those anymore.
Okay, well, I can.
Already
Thank
got
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have our legislative update.
WASDA is on break for July.
Aw.
So no meetings for me until I think we have it in August, we'll pick it up, but I am attending. I'm part of a mini pilot. So when we've done those Zoom sessions, we've done those various times. A group of us have been participating. I did one in June and I'm going to do one tomorrow night. So it's kind of like a forerunner of what can we tweak? And so it's nice. It's good. I don't know. I'm wondering if I have to attend the real one because I already had the first one. But my only comment with those sort of things is that it's just so engaging, even via Zoom. Again, they do the breakout sessions and I like that. And I always wish they could just be a wee bit longer because you just feel like you're warming up, but they're so. I mean, it's the most equitable meeting on Zoom I've ever had in my life. And they're really good about explaining very formally who's speaking first and then the order you go in. So they really tried very hard to have all the voices heard. So, but other than that, no.
Thank you. That brings us to our comments from board members. Our student advisor, Marissa, do you have anything you'd like to share with us this evening?
I don't think I do at the moment. No, I hope everybody's had a good summer so far and continues to have a good summer.
Thank you. Director Knapp, do you have anything you'd like to share this evening?
Sure. My middle son went to the track and field camp at Arlington High School this last week and he had a great time. He's going into 5th grade, so he got to try all the track activities that he wanted. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who organized that and there were so many awesome volunteers and high school students and every kid had a huge smile on their face. It was just nothing but fun and thumbs up. Then my oldest is going to the Snow Isle Tech School program because he's going into 9th grade. So, yeah, so just like taking advantage of those offerings and really appreciate.
He gets high school credit.
He does, yes.
Great opportunity.
Getting a jump start.
Right, Director Kelly, anything else additional?
No, nothing really new, just doing some projects this summer and just taking a nice break from education. So
Enjoy.
put my energy somewhere else so I can be fully attentive come September.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Director King.
I have
anything?
nothing. Thank you.
All right. I have nothing to add either, so we can review our next meeting. We have a few weeks before our next meeting. The next one is August 14th at 6 p.m. right here at the district office. And then the following Monday, I just want to remind everybody, is our all-day study session from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and that's a Monday. So you'll have to not work that day.
Yeah, no, nothing.
And the rest of it. So we'll see you all in about a month. And we'll get to swear in our new student advisor. There's nothing else. Do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, Madam Clerk. Director Kelly,
Hi.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque. Aye. Director Knapp. Aye.